All right, guys, the man needs no introduction. As you guys know, he is commonly known in the Marvel Snap community as the favorite artist of the Marvel Snappers out here. We've got Mr. Dan Hipp with us here today for a little bit of interview action. Dan Hipp, you're not much of an interview guy, right? This is kind of somewhat of a first for you?
Yeah. No, I tend to turn these down, but you asked me in person, and that's like my weak spot. So, which I appreciate. I always love the interest, but you got me. So let's do this.
Well, I appreciate your time and definitely have some fun questions for you. The first thing I can speak to is meeting you in person. One of the most down-to-earth people, regular guys. When you look at artist names, you always kind of like look at the art and you try to think of what they're gonna be or look like. And I know I've been surprised by some different artists, and I don't know if I was expecting you to look like a comic character. I don't know, Dan, but your personality shines. So for those that don't know you, what is your background, Dan, and kind of what is your art style?
Background is I was a nerdy comic kid, like all the things, and just did gravitate toward comic books, and then just kind of, kept following that path, and then, went to school, did art and other things along the way, but always kind of with my eye on the prize that, try and make that art happen. It's like, I talk to my kids about this all the time, where it's like, they're like, Dad, you're doing your dream came true. You're doing that thing that you talked about. We'll be watching Batman the animated series, and I'll tell them like, oh yeah, I was watching this when I was a kid, and now blah blah blah, and it's like, but then I have to explain to them, it's like, yeah, but it's like been like 20 plus years. It took a while to do this. So I'm this place I'm super happy with, but did all the art stuff along the way to get here.
So how did you become an artist and kind of, how did your art style evolve, right? I think obviously it's very unique. To me, it reminds me of, I don't know if you know Shag almost. Like that was kind of like what I thought it looked like immediately. My parents from Palm Springs, so I saw a lot of that growing up. Kind of how did you become an artist and get to that style?
I don't know. I just, I think, maybe this is interesting. I don't know. So I was doing a bunch of comic book stuff, like mostly just, independent, not, just like little books here and there. And I was having a lot of fun doing that. And I was but just didn't feel like, I was like, okay, how do I get people to kind of start looking at this, online? Because this was, this is way back, Tumblr was starting and like all this.
Yeah.
And so I try and post, like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Look at this little teaser, and because that's what everybody else was doing. And then I'd try and look at it and I'd be like, this is so uninteresting, and this isn't really like, I'm faking it, like in trying to sound excited about this little teaser. And so what I started doing was, I was like, what do I want to draw, like just for myself that would be like cool, that I would love to look at. And so I just started, taking all the characters that I wasn't getting hired to draw, all the Marvel and movie characters, and this is like, MCU starting up and all that, and start doing my own pictures. Just I'd do one at night, I'd color it the next morning, post it, and it started getting like a little bit of traction. And this is back when this is like the age of the mashup, where
Okay.
you'd be taking characters from different IPs and doing stuff together, if you can do it in a clever way. That really appealed to me. Like it's just that's how my mind worked already. I was watching a movie, thinking like, all right, but this is, and connect the dots. Anyway, start, just putting that into the artwork. And that started again, like kind of working in a way. And then not too long after that, where I was like getting this, like a small following for what I was wanting to do. That's when I got like this, message from Warner Brothers, like, hey, do you want to maybe art direct this show? And I'm like, what is that? What's an art director? I have no idea what that means. Anyway, that was Teen Titans Go. And my wife had to totally convince me, like, no, you have to go take that meeting. And I'm like, but I want to draw my comic book guys.
Yeah.
And stuff. and then I basically got onto that, and then kind of my style sort of, which had become this really sort of, colorful, sort of simplistic, I mean, depending on who you talk to, like we've kind of joked about that at Comic-Con. It's either, people that artists kind of tend to know, it's like the more simple a drawing is, it's like sometimes the harder it is because you kind of have to nail it. But it's like you also run the risk of one, that can go totally wrong, and it's like, that's horrible, look at that, that's so simple. Also, someone that doesn't understand that, or just people that prefer something different, to them it's like, this is like cool, I drew this when I was 5 years old, thanks but no thanks. And then that's fine too, because we all have our interests.
Yeah.
But anyway, so and then with when I was back on Teen Titans Go, then kind of like, and I was just trying to figure out, what I don't even know what an art director is. What is this? I'd never really worked in animation.
Wow.
And so it was total like sink or swim. And because of that, I kind of got to make up a ton of stuff that and be a little outside the box with how I approach certain things on the show, or I felt that way to me anyway. And thankfully it was successful and did well. And I learned so much. And then so the style was kind of like developed along the way, so that I mean, people, that show, a lot of my style is in that show, obviously, but part of that was because I was just kind of figuring it out as I went.
It's kind of the beauty of art, right? I mean, one of my favorite things about you, there's a lot to break down with what you said, but first, you're very self-aware. You opened up Comic-Con with, you think my nephew drew it, or your nephew drew it?
It's not Reddit, Cozy. I know what they're saying.
Listen, I love it because, okay, there's definitely, you got about 99% of the Marvel Snap fan base, but you got the nephew ones out there, but most of them love the style. And
that's fine. Everybody, art's very subjective, and that's a good thing.
That's the beauty of it. I mean, well, my question, there's a lot to break down, but I'm so interested. So before Teen Titans Go, and I laughed that it was just like an email. I would almost think it's like the Prince Nigeria email, because it's like, this is like what is this? So let me understand. Were you selling commissions and stuff before that? Was it kind of going well, or were you just kind of getting stuff out there and you're like, why me? When they approach you?
I mean, I'd been doing I'd done some comic book stuff. I think my big thing at that point to myself was, I mean, I had written and illustrated a book at Tokyo Pop. I don't know if you remember Tokyo Pop, but was this book that I actually really loved and had so much fun doing. And I did like this Ben 10 book, which at the time, like, Ben 10's like an actual thing. Oh my gosh, guys. And that's when I got the first taste of the ultimate fan response, like, why did you draw them like this? This is horrible. Yeah. Anyway, and then so I mean, I was doing some things, but I kind of maintained the thing that I got that drove interest to my work. I mean, especially from Warner Brothers and Powers That Be, was basically like putting in the stuff that I was interested in drawing out online. So me drawing, Spider-Man, Batman, all those things, and doing my own version of it. So I mean, and the irony there is, or just to kind of, to validate that, when I was on the show, and anytime I had to basically, look at, the work of someone that potentially that's going to come onto the show and be part of the crew, it's like you'd look at their portfolio and it's like, okay, that's great. But now I'm going to go look and see what they post online and what their work is, because that's where you kind of start to see what they're really interested in and where their passion is. Did
you watch? So you said you did the mashups, which I love this because some of the One Piece I tried to buy, your stuff sells out before I could even blink, but I need to up my IP internet to even get it. I saw your Doctors one. I loved it. It was all the doctors of the superhero universe, right? So did you watch? It sounded like you started with Spider-Man, and if you did mashups, then it would make sense that naturally, Marvel, DC was a lot of that. Did you consume that outside of Batman? How did your love for superheroes begin? Was it DC, Marvel in your past?
Sure. No, I mean, I'm, total generic nerd kid, and started reading comic books, in elementary school, going to the library to try to because they actually have great comic books at the library. to try and get stuff and see like all the backstories on everything.
Okay.
This is like back in the day where it was pre-internet,
Yeah.
so or what and where it was not cool to like these things at all.
No, no, no.
Like
It's the best time to be a nerd is right now. Like the age of
Yeah.
nerd has gone up since we were, since back in the day.
Well, because we all grew up and now they're all running the companies and everything, right? So it's
Exactly.
like,
Right.
but I mean, this is back when like Star Wars wasn't really cool, in the same way. So it's like tracking down Star Wars stuff was super hard, So anyway, just my mind ran, with the fantastical. So you try to eat up as much as possible. I loved movies, like loved all pop culture stuff. So there's nothing. I mean, I know for myself, anybody that's followed my work for years, like, I mean, I'm not gonna put pen to paper on something that I'm not like a fan of.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm pretty much just a fan of all the things.
Was there a specific comic issue series that was your all-time favorite that you went back to? Like for me, I loved all House of X-Men was my big thing, but yeah, for yourself?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, when I was younger and I didn't have access to all the comics, it was more like stuff I could get at the library. It kind of started with Tintin, because they had like all the Tintin books and they were amazing, and I like still like love them. And then later it was kind of all like X-Men was a huge one, and like to totally tie this to Marvel Snap, like during the Jim Lee X-Men run where he kind of like Marvel kind of gave him the he was able to do all the trading cards for like they had those X-Men trading cards.
Oh yeah,
which I
yeah, that's in game. I just got it the other day.
Yeah, you see a lot of those now, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and so like at the I that was kind of pinnacle, and then there's a ton of stuff after that, like Image and everything else. But I remember specifically at that time being like this, like they got to like I wanted to collect all these cards.
Yep.
These are amazing. This is like that must be the best job in the world to basically like you get to draw every single one of these superheroes, and it's like that's what I want to do. But that was like such a total like okay, cool, but I mean that's not you're not gonna get to do that, and plus that's not like something you could it's like a side gig or something. So I mean, jumping forward, like Marvel Snap's like a total dream job with respect to that. I mean, that is Tiny Dan me is like
that's so cool, and it's gotta be cool for your kids to be able to look at and be like, Dad set out for a dream, Dad's living his dream, do it. And to be honest, the same here though. I mean, for me, I was in hotels and I was like, I want to do some career, broadcasting stuff, and it's like, yeah, but it's like being a kid and being like, I'm gonna be in the NFL, and your teacher's like, hey, you weigh like 90 pounds soaking wet. You're not doing that. Yeah. So it happens, for a reason. So that's insane that you got to do essentially what you wanted to do as a child.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, we'll see. It's kind of like one day at a time, just loving it until it's all done. But I'm still doing it, so it's great.
So we can circle back a little bit to the Teen Titans stuff. Let's get to a little bit of some Snap conversation, and we'll transition here with the giant Cosmo on screen. So let's start here. I know a lot of the people that are watching this are gonna want to know so much about Snap. I have some questions that came from different people that consume Snap, and one of the biggest things. This is obviously. It's funny. This is where your name became staple to me. But once I knew Teen Titans Go, I was like, oh yeah, the art's the exact same. Obviously, he was the art director there, or had something to do with the art. So let me ask this: how did it first start with Marvel Snap? How did you get introduced to it? What was that process like, and how did that work out?
Yeah, no, I mean, similar to the Teen Titans story. Like I got an email from, I think it was from Johnny Erner, and like asked, hey, we have would you be interested in we're starting this thing, it's Marvel based, would you like to take a crack at a couple of illustrations? And it was not like hey, do you want to come on and draw all these characters and make some people angry and things like that. It was very much like, hey, do you want to just draw a couple characters and kind of see how it goes? And this was coming out of pandemic too, so it was kind of like, I mean, yeah, sure, man, I'll draw some nerdy characters. That's the best. So did that, like it went well, and I mean, yeah, I talked to them early on and saw what their vision for what because they'd already obviously had been developing this for some time, So I got to see some, take an early look at like what they were planning, and it looked super awesome. And yeah, like tapped into all my things of like, drawing, Marvel characters and all this stuff. I mean, I'd been drawing DC characters for 7+ years before that, and then trying to work in as much, I mean, when I was on Titans, I'd try to draw in as much, random characters in the backgrounds and things like that as possible, and it was so much fun. But I mean, but that's the thing. That was all DC, right?
Yeah.
So there was, I mean, and I love DC, but when I was a kid, it was definitely more. I would definitely lean more Marvel. So I had all that nerd knowledge just sitting there waiting to be tapped. So, anyways, then that all went well, and then it kind of like they added more to my list, and then it's just kind of keep going.
Well, I know Brode is a big Dan Hipp fan. He was a big proponent. Always, every time I've talked to him, he's always like showing off his Dan Hipp collection. But what's funny is I almost think Marvel's art style is, or per se, almost characters and feel, even in cinema, is more towards your art style than DC in my perception. Because I always think of DC as like almost like rugged, evil, mean, whatever, dark a little bit, right? Because it's almost because of cinema. You know what I mean? Teen Titans Go is obviously very different to that. And so Teen Titans Go, I think, ended in 2019, right? So then, yeah, you had pandemic at 2020. And so then at that time, were you a bit more really think of what you want to do after doing such a large project? And then this was like, wow, this is just a great next thing, and it evolved to what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was like a little bit of time in between there where, I mean, I hit my end point on Titans where I was like, this is amazing, but I kind of want to do some other things. And so I went off and did some of those, just some little projects, and then pandemic hit, and it kind of everything kind of became, this was all second nature. I have, kids, and my wife's a teacher, and so it was kind of like more like, all right, I got this, honey. I'm going to help steer the ship, and and try to do whatever art I can, and so this coming in, especially at the end of that, was kind of just the perfect scenario of being able to do what I want, on my schedule for the most part.
When you were drawing Teen Titans, I mean, were you even drawing on the side? Like for me, I love video games, right? But when I started doing this as a career, I don't play video games much. I got a family now, right? So outside of it, so when you were doing Teen Titans Go, were you even drawing Marvel on the side ever? I feel like it's illegal almost,
Right. No, I mean, I was doing stuff. I mean, yeah, because I mean, I'm watching, the funny thing is about like, I'd be working at on like the show, a DC movie would come out, and I'd see it like the weekend it came out, and like the next day I'd be putting some joke about it in the background. Like we were like, we were putting Martha jokes from Batman Superman, like literally the week after I saw that movie. So
that's awesome.
Even though the show's you're not gonna see this for a few months, but I mean, but also all the MCU stuff was coming out at the same time, and I was following. I generally follow what's going on in the comic books and stuff too, and also all the other amazing comic artists that are out there. You can see what they're putting out there. So yeah, I mean, it was still very much like I'd see a movie and be like, I have to draw that character. I got to do this thing. So I'd post my own stuff on the side. But
well, this is the perfect transition. I mean, let's talk about. Yeah, I mean, first of all, Marvel has a lot of characters. I think what's great about Marvel Snap is it got people interested in the characters they would really have no bit like and maybe this is the case with you. I had no freaking idea who maybe like Iron Lad was, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now kind of know a bit more who Iron Lad is. So let's start here before we get to, I guess, specific art pieces and the characters themselves. Have you ever played Marvel? Have you gone through the tutorial? Have you played Snap in any regard, even to see maybe some of your art or whatever?
All right, so the quick version, or the short answer is no. The longer answer is like, yeah, no, I've totally got it. I have the app, and like I was super stoked when it came out, because I'm like, I've been working on this, and I basically I opened it up, I basically sat there for a couple hours, like, this is amazing, and then I was like, oh, I'm never gonna draw anymore. I'm not gonna get any work on this done. So I basically was like, you know what? I'm not gonna deep dive this. I'm just gonna like my this is so cool. I want to draw as many characters as possible. So my goal is pretty much I want to draw them all. But like the only way to do that is I gotta put my head down and work.
Dude, the amount of people that have told me like, hey, I love Snap, I had to put it down because I looked at myself in the mirror and I knew I'd be addicted. And that's what happened to me, I was not even creating for this game, and I was playing with my brother, and I was like, hey, the only way I can play this game is if I make content around the game itself, and then thrust into the role. So well, great. Then I'm excited to show you. Maybe I know you've probably seen it on Twitter a bunch, but it's gonna be cool to kind of show you in game some of your art. I'm sure you've seen a lot of it.
Yeah, the short version. I mean, I do. I mean, I'm online, so I see stuff that people post. I totally like love people posting stuff about it and seeing like the animations and everything. So that's great.
So yeah, let's start there. The animation process. I mean, one of the cool things is you've got the base art, which they have everyone. Ryan Kinnard, I think, does all their coloring. Which I know you do a lot of your own coloring. But first, was that weird for you to give your coloring to somebody else, and or a two-part question? The animation that's happening, like with this Cosmo and the tail, do you have any say in that, or is that something you give over to?
Coming from animation. And I mean, and obviously they had, they kind of talked me through it at the beginning, like, hey, this is what we're looking for with the pieces. I'll basically like kind of cut it up where you have so that it is to have. It's possible for it to have that simple animation. By simple, I don't mean like, I just mean like you can have the that like for Venom, like the foreground hands separated from the arm, like the. Stuff like that. So that like when it does kind of it can multi-plane and do this cool stuff that they do. And then like any of the like amazing animation, effects, that's all on them to, make that magic happen.
It's funny because online when you sell it, your pieces, you sell it pre-colored though, yeah? I believe.
Yeah, so I do everything like traditional. Like I have like let me see, I'll grab here's a here's a little. This might be a little exclusive for you, Cozy, because I don't know if this has been out there, but here's my. Oh,
look at that! Is that Cerebro? That's so sick.
That's my Cerebro.
Oh my! I love the eyes, like bringing it to a little character to it.
Yeah, more on that in a second, but yeah, so I do everything on paper, and then I do all the coloring digitally. So when I bring it in, my line work's clean enough. I can just kind of cut it up and like and digitally I'll add like finish, elements that are behind certain body parts, things like that to multiplane. But then I'll do all the coloring and then send it off to kind of let them work their magic.
Well, awesome. So there's a lot. There's separate questions I have, but let's start with: are there any? And as you I've spent like I told my son like, hey, college is probably out. I spent all your tuition on Dan Hipp variants and Marvel Snap over here. But I got quite the Dan Hipp collab. I'm on a quest to get them all. Part of me, it's like, man, I wish this was physical because I want to have the like all of these in hand. But so let's walk through maybe some of your favorite pieces that you can go back to and remember. I have a lot of them, but is there any? Let's start there. Is there, if you have a couple top three, a Mount Rushmore per se of some Dan Hipp Marvel Snap pieces?
Yeah, I mean they're all so much fun. Like it's I don't know that there's like a favorite, but jumping off of the Cerebro, and this is kind of I think this might be a personal cozy favorite as well. Is like if going to like Helicarrier and like the funny thing about that is I'll get this list of, I'll get like, hey, so we want you to kind of hit this character or this thing. And I got like Helicarrier, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with that? I mean, like, I draw so cartoony and so like, bubbly, and it's like, you're drawing this giant block, inanimate object. So like, all right, I'll give him some eyes and do all the things, and I'm expecting like so I send in this rough and thinking like they're gonna be like, no man, you gotta be cool here. It's gotta look like the movie. And they're like, yeah man, it's cool. So I'm like, all right, cool.
No way. This is the best. I love this. I love it's like Jetson vibes is what I get from it with it, and having like the Nick Fury right here with the little smile blasting off. It's perfect, man. This is definitely a cozy favorite for sure.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. Like I'll do something like most of them are pretty straightforward. Like it's hey, it's Venom. You got to make Venom look cool. It's like, okay, Venom's already cool. That's easy. But with ones like this, it's kind of like I'll see like, what can I get away with, and they're second inner's pretty awesome about just letting me have fun with it. So.
Yeah, so I want to hear more about your favorites, but when it comes to like now that you're doing kind of all of them, you're one of few artists. I think there's maybe one where they have to like a good chunk of the characters. Do they give you? Is it Venom, Mean, and Blank, or is it just here's all the characters, do your Dan Hipp thing, we know you're going to do it to Dan Hipp style. How does that work in general?
I mean, I think for the most part, I mean, there's a style at this point. I mean, that have been creating these, and I mean, the funny thing is, like, the style for these isn't necessarily the style that I'd say if I were drawing a comic book would be the style that was in, or even if I was doing animation work would be. This is kind of like an in between, as far as stylistically. So it's been kind of interesting to find. But obviously, I've done enough of them now that I think there's probably an expectation, but of what it's generally going to look like. But I mean, that said, like I mentioned before, they're pretty awesome about kind of letting me have fun. And if I had like ideas, I can obviously suggest those. But I mean, there's not. I mean, there are sometimes like hey, we like. Let's lean a little more MCU on this.
Okay.
But I mean, I think they'd be open to me pitching anything. It's usually comes down to, I mean, one, I'm a huge MCU fan, so that's never an issue. I kind of lean that way anyway, whether they say it or not. But then if there's a character that I'm like, okay, immediately I'm like, go in my head, I remember this character in this way, or I love this era of this character. Or I always love that costume, or the way this artist drew it. I'll tend to kind of gravitate towards that version of it.
But what about like the Arnim Zolas of the world, or these characters that are like, yeah, they're not exactly pop media relevant. How do you go about finding who these characters are and bringing this is another great example of like, this is probably for me a top 5 Dan Hipp on my end, especially because Marvel Snap, as you know, when you split cards, they can do different effects, and one of them is a black and white ink effect, and I think it's just like perfect. It's you got it's like retro television, right? It's one of those that just translate really well. So my question is, like, when you don't know a character, how do you go about Living Tribunal and Arnim Zola and these guys that you really didn't probably know all that much? Maybe you did, but that's my guess.
I mean, for a lot of them, I did know, like know, at least have an awareness of who the characters were. I mean, I was that nerdy kid that had like the official handbook of Marvel Universe from like A to Z. Had like all the characters, and just sit there and read it and everything. So now it's like when these characters are randomly referenced in a Marvel movie, I'm like, But so I mean, so a lot of these I have enough of an awareness to at least like be like oh, Jack Kirby drew that. I remember that. That's awesome. Like, okay. I want to do that version. I mean, but there are absolutely like characters that I'm like, I'm not sure who that is. And it usually is more like the newer characters. Like I think with like Infinite, I want to say like I visually knew who he was, but I did have to go like check like, all right, what because I did not read like the arcs that he was in,
yeah.
Or so anyway, so it's a little hit and miss. Thankfully for me, I'm aware of most of them, but it's usually more like newer characters that are okay. Those are the ones that I gotta go do the Google.
Is there a piece that or is there one circling back to cards you love? Is there one particular you're proud of? Was the one that was like, maybe more challenging than another one? I know you said Helicarrier, right? Obviously, is one because you're like, how am I gonna animate the eyes over here? But is there another piece that maybe you're proud of or most challenging?
No, I don't know. I mean, there's so many,
dude.
So many that I mean, the interesting thing is they're the ones like Spider-Ham, like I mentioned at Comic-Con.
Mm.
That was a fun one just because like. I mean, Spider-Verse had come out like that, like the month of, so, I mean, like the, not the original Spider-Verse, but the one from this last summer. Anyway, so it was just had that fun synergy of like, I'm drawing this thing for an actual thing that was in an actual thing,
Yeah.
So that's always super fun. I mean, they're the ones like, say, like a Venom, Carnage, who it's kind of like I mean, unless you're gonna go like super cute with it and go totally against type, it's kind of like don't mess this up. Like these guys have to look cool, and so hopefully that's kind of a you kind of finish that, and along the way you're like, I think this is okay, I'm not sure, and then you kind of get to that when you're turning it in and you're like, oh, this one was cool. This one was cool.
Okay.
And then side note to that is they're the ones that I'm like, like that's so cute, I did a good job, and like those are the ones where it's like that gets seen a certain way and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't look at it that way, but okay.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm sure that's got to be the toughest part about being an artist. We'll clear it up for the people. Is this? He's eating a hot dog. I know you said at Comic-Con, but let's clear it up for the Marvel Snap fan base. The hot dog, Spider Ham. What's going on here, Dan?
I mean, it's whatever you actually, it's whatever you want. Like, it's fine. He can be a cannibal. Like I saw someone say that in the Spider-Ham world, it's actually made of humans. Like, it's like, it can be veggie, it can be beef, like whatever. It's got you asking questions, and I did something right, people. Well,
there's some multiverse where Spider-Ham is a cannibal, so I think that's the part about Marvel, man. It all lines up. Is there anything online that you've seen, like via Twitter, man? The Marvel, poof, I've learned this. I can't tell you how many times I've learned that I've said a name wrong or whatever it might be. Is there anything that you can remember seeing online that you're just like, woof, like they're passionate? That's for damn sure.
I think the latest fun one was the Miss Marvel.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Like her fingers. It's like, have you ever drawn fingers before? and I'm like, and hey, man, you got to eat. Everybody has their own. For me, I was like, all right, this is the character who's in the comic. She basically like stretches and is like, can do like, enlarge all these things. And like the funniest thing about those characters to me is they always show them like, like I will stretch this one part of me. Yeah. And it looks cool. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that's super weird, man. So, so for me, I'm like immediately like, oh, this is like everything everywhere all at once. Like the total like sausage fingers.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, and, hey, that's not your thing. I totally respect that. That's okay, you guys.
It's funny. It's funny what the keyboard warriors even see, because I get, I look at this, I'm like, oh yeah, we got a good Dan Hipp here, but like someone like meticulous.
Oh, it's weird. That's okay. That's the fun part, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So circling with the art, would you say, now that you commission them all, like, do you two like? How long does one piece of art for Marvel Snap typically take? I'm sure it's character dependent, but I would say on average, maybe is there a time that it takes you to get one of these done?
I mean, I don't know that I can say it directly. I mean, I thought about that beforehand because I mean, some of that's just, I'm like, all right, I'm like looking at my watch. All right, I got to go pick my kids up in a few hours. What can I, how much can I get done? And then when I come back tonight, I'll work on this. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably longer than most people think, given like that it's not the most like crazy intricate style. And part of that is on me, in that if I'm doing it all like on paper, so like I'm actually filling in all the blacks and like of the in between, all the things that like if I were doing it digitally, if I were drawing digitally, I'd be taking a shortcut on it.
Okay.
But I mean but also. Side note to that is, I mean, I'll send off the roughs on this, but then I'm working on a different piece, like the line work, and then I'm working on the coloring at a different stage. So it's not like sit down and start and finish in one stretch.
So I said challenging earlier. Was there one though that you could, and maybe not, but is there one that you could think of, like you came back to it, you came back, maybe like you kept coming back, and like just something, maybe there's something that, like I've done that with videos plenty of times. So is there one that you're just like, damn you, Nightcrawler, whatever?
I mean, I don't know about a specific one. However, like anybody that follows what I do, I mean, it's like, I mean, the characters that are like lean more cartoony or extreme, like obviously you can kind of exaggerate. So that kind of, you can, and sometimes to a fault, but like, yeah, like Jeff, that one was actually really straightforward. It was kind of like, let's try this. And it was like, wow, that's cute. I like that. And so that one actually was like an easier one from start to finish, but a lot of the Swarm actually was, even though there's like a little more line work in that one was really fun to do. But like most of the female characters, it's kind of like, yeah, you exaggerate that the wrong way. And it's, it just is not going to be received the right. Well, it's not going to be received well, but I'll look at it and be like, oh, I did that wrong, and I got to go in and adjust that element. That was Agent 13 was pretty fun, like but a lot of that was just, it kind of came together.
Did you keep any of the? I know you. For those that don't know, it is danhipp.store. What's you sell the originals? Do you have any originals yourself? Did you keep any yourself that you wanted to keep?
I mean, the ones I haven't sold yet, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't so far. I haven't like. I mean, it's just. I mean, I've got a giant stack of them, and basically, I'll just kind of like when I'll do art drops like a few times a year, and kind of go through and figure out which ones I'll put in there. Usually, they're ones that like either I've already posted or obviously are in game. For the most part. And I mean, there'll probably be a point where, because I was looking the other day and like, yeah, the stack is like a lot shorter than it used to be, because thankfully everybody, been able to sell them, and that's fantastic. Thank you, everybody. But yeah, there will probably be a point where I'm like, oh man, I need to like hold on to one of these, because I just remember this was real.
Yeah, well, so I got a couple more, and then we'll do a couple rapid fire and end it up. But do you have any quirky, unusual habits, rituals, things to get you into like creative mindset, or when starting a new pro? Anything that's like a Dan Hippism, if that makes sense, that your daughter's like, that's my dad thing, or whatever, right?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a big I love watching movies, so I mean that's a big I'll pop a movie on. Just when I'm working, try and just kind of get to that place cozy. Yeah. Other than that, no, I don't know. I'm probably, I mean, if anything, I probably don't. I mean, I do not like working on stuff that is not going to become something. So it's like either I'm working on something that like, hey, I got to post this because I needed this time needs to be of use, or it's like this is for a card or a project or something.
So I guess that's an interesting question. So with digital and traditional art mediums, right? Obviously, like Procreate and iPad Draw, it's really easy and not easy. Sorry, easily accessible, and you can do it from whatever. Maybe it's not as I don't know, stationary, whatever you want to say about it. Do you prefer one or the other? Is there what are your thoughts on that in general?
I mean, there's so much amazing work that is being done out there with all these amazing tools. For myself, I try to keep things as just simple as possible. It's kind of with the idea that it's like if it's I don't want to be able to disguise it too much. Meaning I just want to be able to sit down, draw a picture, color it, done. And that's so for the most part. I mean, I do all my drawing traditionally, and then the coloring I do myself in Photoshop. And I'll bring in, a few layers of texture, stuff like that. But otherwise, that's it. It's just pen, paper, and Photoshop. Always trying to work on something and be better. Listen to the criticism, discard a lot of it, but also be willing to like look at your own work and see what can be better.
So yeah, let's do a little rapid fire then, Dan. And let me just tell you this. One thing I know. Listen, I'm probably one of the worst people in the world at accepting compliments. I actually hate it. I get awkward with it. I don't know what to say. I'm like, I'm just a
You're
dude.
awesome, Cozy. We love you.
Stop it. Shut it, Dan. No, but really, I want to just say, I don't know if I'm sure you see it, but the love that there is for you in the Marvel Snap community, there's amazing artists. I know art is subjective. Sure, you got a couple. I've seen nothing like it. I mean, truly, if someone even picks up Marvel Snap, the Dan Hipp is attached to it. You got to stay hip. They know it. Just for myself, I want to say thank you for the art that you've brought to the game. I think it has brought a lot of personality to it. But I want you to know, man, Marvel Snap is really not the same without Hipp. So I think it's important that I'm sure you know that from X, Twitter, whatever. But I think it's important to let you know.
No, it's sweet of you to say. Thank you. I mean, obvious disclaimer caveat to that is that like there's some amazing artists in Marvel Snap, so then they're so good, and I love it, like seeing like it's always if to challenge me to be better, and also just to see what's out there and what people like, and and obviously all the people putting the game together, like amazing work. Not to put you on the spot, but is there any artist that you look to or see that is your personal style that you like a lot? Sure. I mean, like Rianne Gonzalez, she's fantastic. Like, I mean, so like similar sensibilities, like so cute, and it just makes you feel good to see these. I mean, and everything she posts online is like that. Like her work's amazing. It's funny because you two are my two like favorite, especially my own style, and it reminded me of what you said earlier because I posted an Eliath yesterday that it was like I
It's
saw
like
that. So cute.
isn't that amazing? It's like a Care Bear
Yeah.
cloud eating that. It's like, how do you make a Lyot that just kills things cute? And she somehow pulled it off,
Yeah.
right? So,
Tiny Loki and Mobius just like
suffering,
kiss.
like, but so Rian's very, very talented. So, love that callback. You have any others?
Yeah, I mean Max Grech, like
Yes.
like his anything he does, same thing. Like I mean, I follow him online,
So
and if he
cool.
posts, any of his work he does is just like it just makes you want to. Like for me, I was like, I gotta go draw something. It's inspiring. It looks really cool.
It reminds me of like a bunch of video that was not what it reminds me of like almost video games is what like I pull for his like I like this Deadpool is like straight out of Super Nintendo like side scroller is what I see out of it.
It has so much energy, but still so painterly and just like it's fun. Really
It's
fun.
so cool. Okay, another great callback, which I think is what's so cool about Snap is you've got one character, for an example, I'll bring up something like White Queen, right? You've got White Queen where she's got all different types, if I can even find her, of art, and then you've got like these you got the Jim Lee, of course, but then you've got the I don't even have it on me, but you'll have like an Art Germ one where it's like, and a Dan Hipp one, and the style they've really captured what's tricky about art, that there's just so many different styles, and favorite Marvel character and favorite DC character.
DC is Batman, so generic but so true.
Love
and Marvel, I don't even know. I mean, I right offhand I'll say Spider-Man. It's so generic. Like my kids and I we just watched like all the Spider-Man movies. It was amazing. They're like that age. I can kind of do that now. So I'll leave it at that.
No pun intended. It was amazing. I've seen you draw. It's funny too. I've seen you draw Spider-Man different ways too. Like I've seen it, like the same Spider-Man. Like my favorite art of yours, like by far, is the Amazing Friends one. We have Firestar, Iceman in there. Like it's the big one. Oh, it's definitely a fun one. But all right, okay. So we get Batman, Spider-Man, about as generic as you get, man. But after doing 200 characters, I was expecting like Giganto or something. Left field. Do you have a go-to snack, man? When you draw them, what's your go-to snack of Dan Hipp? Now's your chance.
Snack. Carrots. Baby
carrots. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Look at you, healthy. Hey, that's the secret to good art, guys. Take your notes.
Keeps you from eating horrible things. That's it.
Do you have a favorite MCU movie?
Oh man, probably I'm a Captain America fan. My wife's like Team Tony, and I'm like, nope, it's Steve. And so I mean, I still love Winter Soldier. I mean, all the other ones are, they're great, but Loki is amazing. Like I just finished that season, and that's not a movie, but it's a show, and it was very theatrical.
So good. No, truly that WandaVision and Loki season 1 might be like right up there with some of my favorite Marvel pieces. Is there a comment? I think I asked at the beginning, but if you could go back and draw any classic comic book series, what would it be?
I mean, if it was, I mean, there's two versions of that question. One is like, what should I do that would make people not hate me and all that? But because comic books are, you gotta be careful with them. But I like almost any X-Men era, like whether it's the Jim Lee stuff, like in the 90s, or going back to like the John Byrne, Chris Claremont stuff, like, which was when I really kind of like really gravitated towards it. I mean, I wasn't like into comics at the time, but like reading library books and stuff of it. Or I love that era of X-Men.
Did you ever check out what was it? Hey, first of all, if Robert Liefeld, if he can get away with I'm waiting for Captain America to come in the game.
That would be a great Snap card. That image. That'd be
it would
fantastic.
sell. It would definitely sell. Are you with Snap moving forward as cards come out, kind of for X amount of time? What is that? Are we going to be seeing Dan Hipps for possibly years to come?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, one year at a time, but I mean, I'll do it as long as I'm capable of doing it. I would love to do it. Like, there's just so much cool stuff. I mean, the games obviously look so cool, but just like the getting to draw all these characters really is like just. I mean, if I could pick one thing to do, it'd probably be that. Like, it's just I get to do it on the time that I need to do it, and it's fantastic.
Last question. What's next for Dan Hipp with Marvel Snap? What would be your next venture goal thing? I know you have kids now, so it's so different, I'm sure. But what's next for Dan Hipp?
Sure. I mean, with Snap, it's like I love seeing what they're. I mean, I kind of get the preview of like upcoming seasons because I mean, I'm like, oh, I'm drawing all these characters at the same time. These are probably all going to be put together. Um, and so that's actually really fun. Like on anything they throw my way is like just been so much fun. There isn't really any group where I mean, if there's a group where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a hard time with it, it's because like I don't want to mess it up. It's not like like, oh, I don't want to draw them. So that's anything they want to throw my way is fantastic. And for myself, like we'll see. I mean, like my kids are just young enough that I'm just really like, I know this time I'm not getting this time back. So if I being able to, work on what I'm working on right now, like kind of lets me be, the family person I need to be, which is great. And but we'll see. I mean, there may be maybe there'll be another animated thing in the future, maybe something else, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us your time, the exclusive Dan Hipp interview. And guys, if you don't know, the man sells mystery sticker packs. I got about 10 of them. They are a lot of fun. All of his commission art too. You can follow him on you're primarily on Instagram and I call it Twitter, X, whatever. Is that the best place?
X, yeah, Instagram and Twitter X is I post stuff to there, and if that ever changes, I'll post there so you can know where to find me.
Alrighty, man. Well, thank you so much again for your time. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me, and yeah, you're awesome, and Snap community. If you guys are amazing, so thank you for the interest. You guys are fantastic. Hope everybody has happy holiday.
Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this interview with Mr. Dan Hipp. If you want me to do more of these, you can let me know by liking this video and commenting down below. If I get enough reception, we're going to do a lot more to come. So anyway, hopefully you guys appreciated it. If you have not yet, subscribe. As a thank you, it would mean a lot. And until the next one, guys, happy snapping.